Welcome back to African Farming Mzansi. Emmanuel Mudau is a self-starter, a salt-of-the-earth kind of farmer. His tenacity to make his operation a success is matched only by the tenacity of his animals to withstand the conditions and pests in his area. As always, we've gathered some of the top industry experts to share their knowledge with all of us. And today we're going to be talking about pests and parasites. Let me welcome my guests. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Nico from Standard Bank, are you well?
Well, thank you, Tony.
Dr Mpho Maja from the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. You are the Director of Animal Health.
Correct. Welcome,
and you're here on invitation from Vleissentraal.
Thank you for having me.
Joining us. Of course, as always, what are we now? We're buddies in this, aren't we?
I think we are now.
We are. Hey? Yeah. All right. Welcome, Praveen, as always.
Thanks so much, Tony.
And also Caryn Shacklock. Thank you so much from Afrivet.
Hi, Tony. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you with us. Okay, let's start. Nico, let me maybe come to you. I mean, it's weird when we talk about pests and parasites from a financial perspective, but that can really damage an operation, can't it? Financially.
Absolutely. I think the important thing about pests and diseases, whilst you focus on the actual pest and disease, it culminates into the financial performance of your business down the line. And if it's not controlled up front, the effects later down the line can be severe. Therefore, it's quite important that the control up front is managed quite well.
Very true. Dr. Maja, let's talk about we've got the pests themselves, but ultimately those pests are running around spreading diseases as well. So there's a bigger effect, isn't there?
There is a much bigger effect over and above pests being a nuisance and irritating the animals, preventing them from feeding properly. They also transmit diseases, most of which we are very worried about, some of which actually even affect people. We call them zoonoses.
So it's not just the animals, it's people as well that Correct. Need to be aware. Okay. Caryn, from the Afrivet perspective, we're talking about diseases, we're talking about these particular pests. How can one counter? Are there innovative ways one can look at?
Absolutely, Tony. So pests and parasites of animals fall into two categories. They're either internal, like worms and coccidia, or external parasites, ticks, flies, mites, lice. And as Dr. Maja pointed out, they can be very destructive. So there are many medicines out there that farmers can make use of to control parasites, but they need to do that responsibly and carefully, because we see more and more resistance developing to the products that we're using to treat our parasites in our livestock. So they need to follow the dosage instructions very carefully. And if you can't guesstimate the weight of your animal, there are weight bands that can be used to help with that. And then if you're dipping animals for ticks, using the correct dose is really important so that those ticks don't become resistant to that product.
Okay, we were talking about animals there, but we can also look, it's the same thing with crops, isn't it, Praveen?
Absolutely. You know, the pest damage on crops is quite relevant. As Nico was talking about the financial damage that can result out of that. I mean, we've seen how total crops can be wiped out in certain instances. So it's very important for early detection. Make sure that, you know, you do your scouting as regularly as possible. So you pick up problems, start spraying as soon as you need to. And as Caryn said, responsibly. Similar for crops, because remember, that's a food product that you're growing ultimately. That, you know, that's somebody's meal. So make sure that the types of chemicals you're applying, make sure you know the effects of the active ingredient that you're using. And I know I've spoken about it before, but water sources running through your farm that communities rely on, make sure that those active ingredients are not detrimental to the water, making sure that you're also looking out for the community's well-being, not just the crop on land.
Doctor, from that perspective, from a community perspective, and also from a Department of Agriculture perspective, what are you doing in terms of getting that knowledge out to communities? Because we're talking about communal farmers as well here, not just commercial farmers that will be affected by pests and parasites.
We have foot soldiers on the ground, we have extension officers, we have animal health technicians, we also have veterinarians on the ground advising farmers how to manage, how to prevent, and how to treat these pests in their respective heads.
Okay, so there is work being done on the ground.
There's a lot of work being done on the ground, yes.
100%. Nico, as well, I mean, if you're dealing with farmers on a financial perspective, you must also be sitting down with farmers and saying, listen, be aware of this, be aware of this. This is how you may be able to, you know, to counter this financially.
Yeah, I think one of the financial pests, if I can call it that, is cash flow. It normally goes along with growth, and growth eats cash. And then halfway through that process, you get yourself in a very difficult position because you did not focus on those things. And when you add the actual issues of pests coming into play in specifically animals and as Praveen said in the crop side of things, then suddenly there's an extra expenditure that needs to be catered for. And suddenly your cash flow takes a knock. So it's critically important that everything you do, you have to go back in the evening and to go and plan and see what it's going to do to your cash flow in 2-3 months' time.
Okay, good piece of advice. Caryn, coming to you, you know, how critical is it to always test and diagnose?
Sure, Tony, our country has been in the throes of many animal health challenges this season. And so farmers are losing a lot of animals. So I think that when their herd is being affected, they're losing a lot of animals, they need to reach out for help. As Dr. Maja mentioned, there are a lot of foot soldiers on the ground that are available for farmers to reach out to help with diagnoses. And then when we're dealing with control diseases and the national herd is at risk, then diagnostic tests become quite important as well.
Right, let me get a last piece of advice. So just a last comment, Doctor, from yourself.
In all we do, we need to keep in mind that food safety is one to consider. So let's observe the withdrawal periods.
Praveen, from yourself.
We've seen recent outbreaks of pests. We know we need to control them, but let's be responsible when we do it.
And Caryn, last word from yourself.
Tony, I'd like to encourage our farmers to make use of the wealth of resources they have at their disposal, from training and veterinary assistance in private companies and the state.
And our finance man, Nico, your last word.
I think pest and disease can cause deviation in terms of profit and cash flow. Make sure that you understand that and that you replan accordingly.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody, for your wise words, and thank you for being on African Farming.
Thanks for having us.
So there you have it. Mpho Maja took a leap of faith into farming, and he hasn't looked back ever since. May the mosquito of doubt and the tick of despair never darken his doorstep. Well, there you have it, Mzansi. Make sure you join us online, #AfricanFarming, or you can catch us on our website, africanfarming.com. And remember, we farm better together.